All right, here we go. All right, Section 2, Chapter 3, Promoting Growth and Stability. The question we'll answer during this time is, how does the U.S. government encourage growth and stability in this section? Why is the screen so dark? So far in Section 1, we kind of talked about American-U.S. economy, just kind of how it works a little bit, kind of what motivates the free enterprise system that we have. And now in this section, we'll talk a little more in depth about how can growth and stability take place. So throughout this class, we're going to cover two types of economics. The first one is going to be macro, and what that means, it's studying economic behavior on a national level, a whole economy when it comes to this. So when we refer to the government and making decisions for that, that is known as macro. Making trade deals with Canada and Mexico, that's on the macro level. So study of how the economy, in this sense, grows and operates together. And economist's job is to study what are the trends that are going on within the economy that is going forward. So macro, large level. So if that's macro level, that's a nation's whole economy. A micro would then be based on a household or a firm on a small scale. This would be studying a person's individual decision making. Why did you buy this car over this other car? What was related to that? When gas prices were extremely high about 6-7 years ago, people started buying smart cars and smaller vehicles. An economist would study, a car dealership could hire economists to find out, okay, why exactly is that taking place? And then obviously you put two and two together that it was because gasoline was so high. So micro and a macro level. So when the U.S. is studying their economics, they're looking at two different things. They're looking at individual household decision making, firms, and then how it's making on a major level. All right, next is one of the tools that they use is called GDP, Gross Domestic Product. And this is what this term means. It basically means if there was a price tag on the United States, this is how much the U.S. would be worth. And I forgot the exact number that we have, but it's, I believe it's in the trillions. And that would be the value of it. So that's taking all the factors of production, land, labor, capital, putting it into a dollar's worth, and coming up with this massive number. So an economist can take this number from year to year to see, okay, is it growing or is it shrinking when it comes to this? So when they talk about in the news, GDP is at 1% growth each year, or compared to a 4% growth, or we're behind, this is a really good statistic to see how we're doing. All right, business cycle. This is found on a household, a firm, and also on a national level. And what takes place with an economy is you have these different types of cycles. From a slump to recession, recovery to a boom that is taking place. All you really need to know for this one is just a definition for the business cycle. And this is normal. You always have an economy that goes up and down. The key, I guess, for the government and for the economists is to make sure that it's stable enough where we don't have dramatic ups and downs in our GDP growth. One year we're up 8%, next year we're down 3%. So trying to keep that business cycle as consistent as possible so we don't have to have so much dramatic change that takes place. If you go back and look at GDP, especially during the Great Depression and World War II, you'll find that GDP is just all over the place in the business cycle. All right, making decisions. So an economist will study, okay, consumer consumption. Why is it high right now versus in other times? If consumer consumption is very high, that means now that we need more products, so we need an increased production. Now we need to hire more employees. So right before Christmas time, as soon as Thanksgiving gets here, there is a major push for retail to hire temporary employees because consumer consumer consumption is very high at that point in time throughout the year. I was just watching the news last night that Target right now had a bad quarter when it came to Christmas time. And they're trying to figure out what took place. Why is the quarter so bad during this time that took place here? And part of that was because now the competition of online purchasing. Anyone do any purchases this year? Christmas instead of going to the store? Online purchases? Yeah, a few of us do. It's a growing thing. If you got Amazon Prime, I mean, you get it in 2 days. And then on the other end, if consumption is low, well, now we need to, in order to make up for lost sales, we need to increase the prices. Maybe we have to cut down on production, and then we're going to have layoffs that take place there. So every store, every nation tries to figure out what's going to take place. And then as soon as January comes, if you had a part-time job somewhere, retail or fast food, you probably saw some of your out, maybe depending on the business, but you probably saw some of your hours taken away, and that's a result because consumer consumption is low. Meaning everyone's broke in January. Everyone spent way too much in December, so now they have nothing to spend in January. So an economist would take this information, give it to the public official, and then as a result of that, they can pass things that would benefit society to make GDP more stable. All right, 3 different types of economic strength that policymakers pursue in 3 goals. We're going to go over each one, so you don't have to write these down. High employment, growth, and stability. As soon as we always have an election time, politicians, policymakers are usually focusing on these three things. Let's bring jobs back to the U.S. Let's have more opportunities of growth. Let's have small business have more tax cuts. And also, we are going to have more strength in our stability by having more opportunities available to its citizens that are there. So for unemployment, for a healthy economy, the goal is to have it from 4 to 6%. I think we're in the 5s range right now. So as far as employment goes, we're right where we want to be as far as that statistic goes. Now, in another chapter, we'll talk about why that number is not completely accurate. Just because this number looks good doesn't mean the economy is growing as it should. So, 4 to 6% sign of healthy economy. Next one is economic growth. On a macro level, you always want to see economic growth from year to year. Same thing with your families. Your parents want you to have a higher standard of living than the previous generation. That's my vision for my kids, that they will also have a higher standard of living than what I had. Now, I want them to work for it, obviously, but at the same time, I hope they're more successful than what I am. So increase the GDP. You want to see that number grow. And then depending on your political views, how do we raise that GDP? Well, do we raise taxes, making more programs available to be able to educate and provide more safety nets? Or do we lower taxes, allowing more of the citizens to have more of their income to make the decision making with it? So economic growth is another one. And the third one, that's stability. That stability is so important. If there is faith in the market, people are willing to take more risks. If you know a company is going to grow, you're going to take more of a risk. You're going to put more money, you're going to buy more stock into that company. But if we're going into recession, then we lose faith in the economy, and then we're not going to invest as much. A good indicator to really watch is prices. Prices are a good indicator to let you know how the economy is going. Gasoline is a good indicator of this. I think it was 6, 7 years ago, gas per gallon was like $3.99, $4, almost $5, $6 out in California during that time. Confidence level is not very high. If I have to spend all that extra money on gasoline, it's going to be, the confidence level is not there. I'm not going to take as many trips. I'm going to really watch what type of vehicle I'm purchasing. I'm going to start looking for alternatives when it comes to transportation so that the confidence level would not be there. So again, the government tries to prevent these drastic changes. Now, when certain things happen, there's nothing that we can do about it. When 9/11 happened, there was nothing we could do to help the economy when it came to this. But the housing bubble that we'll talk about in another chapter, we could have hopefully tried to ensure that would have been better than what took place there. So they tried to do their best to avoid these drastic changes. And we'll see. Tomorrow is inauguration of a new president. So we'll see how his plan for stability will take place and go from there. All right, what about economic citizenship? How does this promote growth and stability? Well, instead of your elected officials that we put into government, instead of them making the decisions, what they can do is put a referendum out there. And a referendum is, did anyone get to vote in this last election at all? Yeah, one, two, okay. Usually what you'll find on the ballot, especially for a presidential election, is they'll put a referendum. And what that means, it's allowing the citizens that live in that part of the city or the state or nationally to vote on a particular legislation that would be passed. So Minnesota a few years ago, there was 2 huge referendums that were on the ballot for Minnesota. One was voter ID, and the other one was the marriage amendment. Marriage amendment didn't pass. That wasn't really a surprise, but it still allowed the citizens of Minnesota to make that decision. The other one, though, that everyone was a little bit shocked about was voter ID. And voter ID was, what that means is when you go in to vote, you have to show your ID, your identification. You're really who you're talking about when it comes to this. Which again, it's kind of shocking that it didn't pass. Because you could go in, you could have gone in as your parent at election time and say your name and say your address, and that's all they ask for when you go in to vote. So you could have voted for your parents, which have been fraud. A few years ago, Attorney General Eric Holder, he's no longer in that position. One of the biggest things for his position is to avoid voter fraud, and he is not he was not for voter ID. And so this kind of younger guy in his 20s, he tries to expose inside stuff for the government. And so what he did, he went to Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the United States. He found out where he lived, and he went on election day to where Eric Holder would be voting and said, "I'm Eric Holder." And then he confirmed his address, and the people there were going to give the ballot for Eric Holder to this kid who wasn't him at all. Now, he didn't do it, obviously, because he was videotaping the whole thing. He would have went to prison for it. But he was just exposing how bad the system is, that we don't have voter ID when it comes to this. So it didn't pass in Minnesota. There's a lot of states that are going that direction. I think we'll eventually get there with the U.S., but as of right now, we're not there in Minnesota. All right, other ways to promote growth. Technology is key to factoring boosting productivity. Technology is key to affecting this. I mean, from security to advertising to education to transportation, I mean, it really will advance things. I think I mentioned it here before. Kids that are born today, there was an article written out there, will not have to drive cars by the time they're 16. I mean, that's mind-blowing to me, knowing that my son, who's 2, 14 years from now, he would not need a license to be able to get in the car, and the car will take him where he needs to go. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that yet. They say it would drastically reduce the amount of accidents that would take place in the U.S. Now, obviously, there'd be some fatalities probably that would take place as well. But you imagine your car, everyone would be on the highway going over 100 miles per hour. Nothing to worry about because no one's distracted by their cell phone. The elements are already taken into account for the weather and being able to cruise like that. I mean, rush hour wouldn't exist anymore because everything would be automated. It would all be just one smooth, continuous trail when it comes to that. So I know that's the goal and vision when it comes to that. Delivery of any type. There's talk about the retail store is on its way out. I don't think it is, but you no longer have to go to the store anymore. Everything's online. You purchase it. You don't have to go into the store anymore. And we mentioned it before with Amazon. They want to have those floating warehouses. So if you need something, you go to your website, order it, drone drops it off within 2 hours, and you're good to go. So technology advancement when it comes to that. In the school, we're trying to heavily get involved with technology involvement because it makes our students more efficient in what they're able to do. If you can operate Google Drive and know how to create docs and spreadsheets and be able to collaborate on an online document, you're ahead of a lot of older generation. If I asked my grandparents to do that, it'd be very difficult. You want me to share what? How do you share? What's Google Drive? They're getting there. They just got Facebook, which they shouldn't have Facebook, but they got a Facebook. That's kind of when you know it's time to move on to a different type of social media when your grandparents and your parents are getting on there. So, anyone use Facebook as much as they used to anymore? Not so much. What's that?
Only for the Decade Ends videos.
Okay.
And some Party things.
What do you guys primarily use? Twitter? Okay, Instagram. Yeah. So that's kind of the trend too. I mean, being able to stay with social media and things like that, big part of this. Technological progress, obsolete. As things advance, old things go away. Let's see if you can recognize each one of these. What is this here?
Radio.
Okay. This one?
A floppy.
Floppy disk, floppy drive. These things used to be so unreliable. If you got any sort of magnet, anything on it got erased immediately. You imagine having your paper on here and you have to turn this into school. When I was in high school, that's the stuff they were starting. Well, no, we had CDs. I'm not that old. But Mr. Westland, if you have a conversation with him in college and stuff, he could tell you about those floppy disks. Anyone have one of these old school TVs still at their house? Yeah? Okay. Probably in the basement somewhere when it comes to that. What is this? Okay? One of the Walkmans. Being able to listen to radio while you're walking or exercise, that was a big deal. This film. Anyone have a film camera? Yeah? And that's a growing trend. People kind of like that. And this. Cassette tape. Anyone have a cassette player in their car? There you go. It used to be a big thing where you could put this cassette player into your machine on your car, and then it had a wire attached to it to your CD player, so then you could listen to CDs through the cassette player. Maybe you do that. You probably don't do that now. But yeah, all of this technology is going obsolete. We don't have as much of this as we did anymore. Workers are the same thing when it comes to advancing technology. You want to make sure that your citizens that are there are also advancing as well. And that's why it's important for each of us to try to stay up with technology so that your skills do not become obsolete. You want to stay up with the trends when it comes to this. Realistically. You don't have to have everything brand new. but being able to understand how these things operate is good. All right, so even the government tried to get involved with this advancement in technology. Marilla Acts of 1862 and 1890 were passed. The whole idea is setting land and money for agriculture and mechanical arts, being able to advance these things. There's so many grants out there today. Anything as far as computer science or advancement technology or renewable energies, there's grants out there and available for this. NASA was part of this, being able to really get a hold of this and advance things. Some of the things that NASA created instead of just spaceships: invisible braces, scratch-resistant lenses, memory foam, ear thermometer, shoe insoles, satellite, obviously, cordless tools, and water filters. So, got any of those at home, you can thank NASA for those and the discoveries of what they did. So what if you come up with a great idea, and how does that protected by the U.S.? Well, what you can do once you come up with your invention or this process, whatever it is, you can license it. And what you can do is file for a patent through the government, and that means that no one can use that identical process, that identical product or service, or whatever it might be, that you are protected for 20 years. So no one else can duplicate it. If they do, you can sue them and then get royalties back from every sale that they made. Anyone know who Elisha Gray is? And recognize that name? Well, there's a reason why we don't recognize that name. It's because Alexander Graham Bell. February 14th, 1876, Alexander Graham Bell goes in to file his application for the telephone. I believe it was the same day Elisha Gray, or within the same week, came in, filed for the same thing. He was denied. He said, this patent has already been filed for this idea and model. You cannot do it. And as a result, we now know Alexander Graham Bell as the creator of the telephone, and Elisha Gray is not remembered anymore. He went on to be successful. I think he was a president of a university. But as far as history books, he's just known as being late when it comes to the patent. So the patent is there to protect it. All right, copyright. Government license that grants an author exclusive rights to public and sell creative works. So your music that you create, your photography that you're doing, as soon as you take it, if you take the picture or if you create the music, you are the owner of that. And people cannot just rip it off. Meaning that you post it on YouTube, you have a new song on there, they can't just go to a website and take your song. Now, people do it, but it's not legal. You're not allowed to do it. Same thing in photography. You can't just screenshot. So if someone takes your senior pictures, you don't pay them, you screenshot it. You can't do that. That is copywritten when it comes to this, especially if you see this symbol on there. The whole idea is to protect someone's creative work, being able to do this. So music and photography industries. One of the biggest things that makes the U.S. So successful is the American work ethic that we have. And this was really a precedent from our grandparents, who are known as the greatest generation, because they went through the Great Depression. They knew what it was to work hard. And as a result, that work ethic has trickled down through generations. Now, they say millennials are all lazy, which I don't think we are. I disagree with that. Because when we find something we really enjoy doing, I mean, we accelerate very quickly. I still remember my grandparents came to see us during one summer, and they stayed with us for a couple weeks. And my grandpa, I would sleep till maybe 10, okay? It's summertime. He would be knocking on my door by like 8:30. Time to get up. We got to get outside. We got to start working. It's 8:30, Grandpa. It's summertime. Doesn't matter. We're going to get out there and work. So he worked me pretty good. I don't like him at that time for it, but looking back, I can see where he's coming from. I didn't need to be sleeping in every day like that, so so now I do that to my kids. So I can thank my grandpa for that one. All right, work ethic, that is there. Working hard, but also caring about the quality of one's work. This is when you're picking a career path, you really want to find something that you enjoy doing. Because statistics prove that if you enjoy doing something, if you are talented in that, and you really want to develop your strengths in that, you will go further doing that instead of doing a job that you hate that brings in a lot of money. Because it just comes down to the end of the day, okay, I'm just doing this job for money. There is no fulfillment in it, and as a result, I hate this to death. But if you can find something that you really enjoy doing, it may not have the benefits of high income at first, but if you really enjoy doing it, you're really going to push yourself forward when it comes to this. All right, last slide for this section here. Last slide is called bootstrapping. This is especially for small business. So you want to start a small business, whatever the idea is, you're probably not going to have a lot of startup money to do that. So what bootstrapping is using what you do have and being able to stretch it out as much as possible. Doing as much cash as possible to grow the business. So everything you bring in from the business right away goes straight back into it. And you're stretching your resources as far as you possibly can. For my food truck business that I do during the summertime, this will be year number 6 for us this summer. We bootstrapped it from the very beginning. So we bought a trailer on Craigslist from this old couple up in New London, Minnesota, and we didn't really know what we were doing when we bought it. The old guy said that, yeah, it needs a little bit of work, but it should be fine. You should be able to turn it and be able to have a trailer ready to go for the summertime. So I go up there, I give him the money, so now we need to get the trailer, and they lived on this property, and it just had a massive snowstorm. So it had this small little path where the trailer is in the back of the woods area. So he's like, I'll get it out for you. Don't worry about it. So, and he threw in a truck with this deal too, but the truck didn't really help us at all. He gets the truck, he attaches the trailer, and he just guns the truck down to the floor, and he's just zipping through this little path. He catches a snowbank, and one of the walls on our trailer, he actually like stretched out, like ripped it off almost. So by the time he got it out to us, the frame was intact, but the top right-hand wall was not. And you could actually see the framing on the inside. So you could see it moving. So I talked him down more, obviously, for money. And then it was about a 3.5-hour drive back to where we live. So on the way back, our trailer wall, you could see it moving in the wind a little bit of this frame. So I get it back, and my wife's there. My family came over, and my wife just kind of had that look in her mind, like, what did you buy? And so I'm like, we'll fix it. It's not an issue. We'll figure out how to do it. And we bought this in about, I think it was February, and we had our first event in June. So from pretty much to February to June, every single Saturday, every single Sunday after church, I was in that thing, fixing it up. I had family that helped me too. So we were bootstrapping it like crazy, as much income as we could put into this thing as possible, trying to find the best deals. And by the time June hit, we were able to open our doors and get things going. We're almost at the point this year where we don't have to put as much as our personal income into this. We can just let the business cycle itself through. But it's been a long run. Countless weekends of being in there and 16, 17-hour days sometimes. And as a result of this, I have to work an additional job just to make sure we have enough income. So I haven't had a full weekend off. I had one this past Christmas. But since we started the business, I think I've had maybe 8 full weekends off since we started, just doing a part-time job doing this. But that's bootstrapping it because we have this vision, we have this goal that this business will take off. And so I can just teach and it's doing it in the summertime and be enough income to provide for our family. And once you find something you're passionate about when it comes to a certain job or whatever it might be, you're willing to do this. You're willing to work 6-7 days a week if you need to. There was a string of events that we did 2 years ago where I went 21 days straight of working. Either it was in school or it was at the fair or whatever it was, just 21 days. I would not recommend that to anyone. But when you have that vision of that goal, what you'd like to accomplish, it's called bootstrapping, and you're just doing everything you possibly can to make it successful. All right. And